Joe joins us now. You got this TV thing down, Joe?
We're working on it. It's always a work in progress, but I'm feeling pretty good. We've had some good ones on Thursday night this year. We had the Seahawks game a couple weeks ago, which was unbelievable the way it finished and solidified me that right now Russell Wilson is the MVP of the NFL thus far.
I mentioned this with Tony Dungy. I feel like if you're not drafted in the first round at that position, it takes you longer. It takes longer for us to almost anoint you as being worthy. Like Dak Prescott, if he's a first-round draft pick, we probably don't look at him the way we do as a third- or fourth-round pick. Russell Wilson with a third-round pick. Why is that?
Well, it's because of the resource that you invest in that position. It's unlike any other position on the field where there's only one quarterback. You can't say that about any of the other important positions on the field. And so when you draft a guy in the first round, not only are you putting the money resource, the draft pick resource, but you're putting a team of coaches and support staff around that person to try to get success, because we know clearly that's the most important position on the football field. And so when you put so much into that first round pick, you're going to give them more time to develop and you're going to give them more opportunities. But when you have a third round pick like that, you're not always drafting them with the intent of making them your franchise quarterback. A lot of times you're thinking, well, he could be a backup, or maybe we develop him down the line and trade him like some teams have done. And so it's all about how much you invest in that position as a first round pick versus a later round draft choice.
Yeah, but like Gardner Minshew, oh, he's a cute little story. Kyle Allen, yeah, it's a nice little story. Like we're not validating what they do, probably because Kyle Allen's not drafted and Gardner Minshew is a mid-round draft pick here.
Yeah, well, it's because of why you get drafted in the mid-rounds. It's because you have some type of flaw in your game that we saw in college, whether it be your decision-making, your arm strength, your accuracy, whatever it is. Going through that draft process, they've identified a flaw, and so you have to overcome that and prove that you can do it at the NFL level because of whatever that flaw is. Whereas when you're a top pick, you have some type of talent where teams are looking at it and saying, wow, Patrick Mahomes, look at this arm. This is generational. So we're ready to anoint him because in our minds we are already preconceived to be able to see that he could be great. So it's just a matter of overcoming some preconceived notions that we have as fans, as coaches, as evaluators in the NFL.
Yeah, I guess I got sidetracked because I think Russell Wilson's been doing this. It's just taken people longer to realize that he's been doing this. I think he's been as valuable to his team as anybody, any player in the last couple of years. So you got a chance to see him up close and personal.
Yeah.
What did you see last?
Part of that is because being in Seattle for whatever reason, just because it's such an East Coast dominant sport in football and in sports in general. Seattle, they're always playing the afternoon game. They're not on everybody's TV as much. So people don't realize how much Russell Wilson does for this team, because he's not always the guy that's putting up 400 yards, but he's always finding a way to win. And that's, to me, why he's the most valuable. He makes everybody around him better, and he finds a way to win.
He's Joe Thomas, former Cleveland Browns All-Pro tackle. What did you see last night? And as far as what kind of solutions would you have for the inept officiating that we've seen, inconsistent officiating that we've seen?
Well, I think, truthfully, we need to eliminate instant replay, because right now the NFL is selling this folly to its fans that we have instant replay because we want to get it right. And we have all these different camera angles in these games, and we can clearly see that calls are not being made correctly. And then we go to instant replay, and in our minds, we've been told by the NFL they're doing this to get it right, but then they're not overturning calls anymore. And so I think what they need to do is go to sort of a sky judge. I'm not a big hockey fan, but my hockey friends tell me that that's kind of what they do in the NHL, whereas let's just play the game. Let's not have unnecessary stops for instant replay. Unless the sky judge sees something that needs to be overturned, that's egregious, that's clear and obvious, like the standard is that they've set with instant replay. But the thing that fans hate more than anything is being told one thing and then having another thing. Don't spit in my face and tell me it's raining, NFL.
But if you look at what happened with Trey Flowers last night, do you have any problem as a former offensive lineman? Bakhtiari sold it a little bit, but Flowers did not get his hand in his face. But they called it, and those were two costly penalties.
Well, I think what's happened this year specifically is the NFL really has sold out their officials, because they've said there's going to be a renewed emphasis on holdings, on hands to the face, on the line plays, whereas those were the type of plays that really in the NFL, they would let the offense and defensive line play. They're not going to call ticky-tack hands to the face, ticky-tack holdings. But for some reason, they decided they wanted to tighten that up in the offseason. And so that was a point of emphasis. And so I think whereas in years past, those were the type of calls that when it's happening at full speed, it's really difficult to tell if that hand is in the neck, is it on the shoulder pad, is it in the face mask, and kind of going into that minutia is difficult at full speed. Now, as fans, as viewers, we have the ability to go back and watch it frame by frame and slowly see that Trey Flowers did not have his hands in Bakhtiari's face. But what I think the NFL needs to do is kind of go back to maybe the old standard on some of these judgment calls and say, you know what, let's let them play, especially in these critical moments of the game. It's too important to not screw it up. And it's too important. Let's just let them play unless it's really obvious in that situation. Then you can throw the flag. But to be under the microscope the way NFL refs are right now, and then have the NFL continue to push for kind of splitting hairs on these judgment calls, in my opinion, is a bad way to do it.
What do you think the Browns need to do? If you said one thing that they must do that if they're going to have a successful season, would be what?
Well, they need to improve their consistency and discipline, and I think those things go hand in hand. Early on in the season, it was a matter of penalties. Now it's mental mistakes, it's turnovers, and I think a lot of that goes back to discipline. I think Freddie Kitchens did a great job in his press conference talking about, hey, this is the reality of our situation and our team right now. We have a lot of talent, but we're playing as a group. We're not playing as a team. We're not playing discipline. We're not paying attention to the details that need to be paid attention to. And so this is their bye week. Hopefully they're going to be able to go back and maybe re-emphasize those little small details, because in football, it's a game of a million little things, and you put all those things together, and that's why the Patriots are good year in and year out. They take care of every single one of those details because no detail is too important to spend time on.
But also, I want to simplify things. When things go wrong, then you come back to basics and you simplify. And it feels like the Browns were not doing that. They were trying for the big play. You know, Baker was trying to be a star instead of letting it just happen naturally. Freddie Kitchens wants to prove that he can coach in the NFL, whether he can or not. You got to get Odell Beckham the ball and Jarvis Landry the ball. And it's just too much. And I don't know if they're too far down the road where you can say, hey, let's just come back. Let's run the football. Let's establish, this offensive line isn't great for Baker to be running back, running around there. He's going to get sacked. He's not going to have time to throw the big home run ball to OBJ and Jarvis Landry. Can you do that?
Well, it's hard to argue with what you're saying, and I think that's a function of the youth and inexperience. When you have a roster as talented as the Browns, but it's full of youth. And they don't understand sometimes you just need to take what the defense gives you. You don't have to go do something that's out of what the flow of the offense is. And early on, it was all about Baker trying to force the ball to OBJ. Yeah. It was, how do we get OBJ his touches? It was, all right, let's go make plays. Let's go live up to the hype. And some of that you saw, with Freddie Kitchens, like you mentioned. He needs to prove to the NFL that he deserves this job, that he deserves to be a great offensive coordinator, that he deserves to be playing or coaching all these talented players. And I think that's probably one thing we will see coming out of this bye week is, hey, guys, let's go back to basics a little bit. Let's focus on the things that we've done consistently well up until this point in the season. And what is that? That's been running the football with Nick Chubb, which sets up everything else with that offense. Let's not be so concerned about who's getting the ball and how much, because you know what? When Nick Chubb's running the football efficiently, which is something that they can do because Nick Chubb's a special player, all of a sudden, OBJ's not getting as much coverage as he was before. Now we can throw him the football. Now we can get him involved. And then it's much easier when you have a simplified offense to take care of those details and to play consistently good football. And I think that's what we'll see coming out of the bye week.
If you could block for any quarterback now, who would it be?
I would love to block for Russell Wilson. Like I mentioned earlier, he makes everybody on that team better. Patrick Mahomes, he would be a lot of fun too. It's hard to argue between those two, but I just feel like Russell Wilson, with his experience and his decision-making, not only in the pocket, but when he starts to run, and his ability to understand when it's time to scramble and when it's time to scramble and make an unbelievable throw, and the fact that he's playing flawless football, nearly completing almost 75% of his passes, throwing the ball down the field, and just finding a way to win, I think it would be fun to play with him, because as much fun as it is to have the Star Wars offense in Kansas City and score 40 or 50 points, To me, the exciting thing about playing in the NFL is finding a new way to win every week. And when you have a quarterback like Russell Wilson, that's exactly what he's doing, because you're never in a game where you're saying, okay, it's over or we don't have a chance. You're always looking and saying, Russell Wilson's our guy. We're going to win this game.
Great to talk to you, Joe. Safe travels to Denver, and we appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
Thanks, bud. That's Joe Thomas, NFL Network analyst.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.